Representative Peter King from New York went on Morning Joe like he usually does, where he and David Gregory proceeded to bash Edward Snowden and his interview from last night. Listen.
So, Congressman, when you heard Edward Snowden assert, without evidence, that there's no provable way to say that he's done damage to the United States, that he's done damage to our intelligence gathering service, or that there's no way to prove, as he said, that terrorists have adapted to what he's put out there to the world and could be plotting attacks or changing their methods as a result, how do you answer that?
Well, being on the Intelligence Committee, we have direct evidence of terrorist organizations which have changed their means of communication since Snowden made his revelations last year. But I would go back to what Mika was saying, David. She's saying that he came across as somehow not a usual hacker. He did not give one example, not one example, to justify what he did. He did not show how one American had his rights violated, how in any way the NSA listened to anyone's conversation was not approved by a court order, how they read anyone's email. None of that. He was talking about all the things they could do, which any intelligence organization in the world could do. The difference is in the United States, it's monitored by the courts, it's monitored by the Congress, and it's monitored by the Justice Department. So I think this guy is a fraud, and I really wish that Brian Williams had gone after him and asked him, give one piece of evidence that shows the NSA has violated the law in any way.
I'll give you 11 pieces of evidence. January 28th, 2014, headline, NSA spied on angry birds. January 6th, NSA doesn't deny spying on Congress. December 9th, 2013, NSA spies on World of Warcraft and Xbox Live. October 30th, 2013, NSA spies on the Pope and the Vatican. October 21st, NSA illegally spied on French citizens. September 14th, NSA mimics Google to monitor certain web users. August 26th, NSA workers spied on love interests. August 17th, NSA audits find 2,776 violations in 1 year alone. August 5th, NSA giving data to the DEA. And then, by the way, the DEA would take that information and use it for drug crimes, which is totally illegal. You need to get a specific warrant for a specific case. You can't just data mine and take information from the NSA and use that to spy on anybody you want. 100% illegal and unconstitutional. June 22nd, NSA spied on Obama when he ran for president. November 27th, NSA spied on porn habits to discredit radicalizers. So there's 11 pieces of evidence. Snowden wouldn't even give one piece of evidence of how the NSA was abusing their authority or spying on people. I'm Peter King. I'm a dumbass. Okay, the reason why he didn't give specifics in that interview is because there's been so many stories that broke in the press from his the papers that he leaked, which provided the evidence he's referring to. That's why he didn't give specifics. The press already gave the specifics, you dipshit. How do you not know this? Or he does know it, but he's ignoring it. And by the way, every single one of those things I just ran through, totally illegal, totally unconstitutional, 100% the NSA abusing their authority. Okay? And remember, the reason why this is illegal and the reason why this is a problem is that the NSA is spying on over 300 million Americans with one warrant that they're broadly using, and they're saying, well, everybody is guilty by default or implied by default in our terrorism investigation. But that's not the way that the country works. You're not allowed to do that. You know, there's no evidence that Grandma Maud, who just bakes apple pies all day and watches reruns of Walker, Texas Ranger, she's not guilty of a crime. I'm not guilty of a crime. You know, Dave, the plumber down the street, isn't guilty of a crime. He's not, there's no evidence he's involved with terrorism. So to take all his information from his cell phone, to take it from his email, to take it from his internet searches, you're not allowed to do that. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says, quote, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. It's amazing how the literal text of the Fourth Amendment is almost like, it almost says flat out like, hey, NSA, don't take 300 million American stuff. I mean, obviously it's impossible for it to say that because at the time there weren't 300 million Americans and there was no NSA, but it comes as close as you possibly can. It's saying, look, if you think somebody's guilty of terrorism or guilty of a crime or whatever, fine, great. We're not saying you're not allowed to do an investigation to figure out if somebody's done some sort of a crime. What we're saying is if you do that, you need to go through the process we laid out for you, which is you go to a judge, you go to an independent group of people, and you say, look, here's our evidence. Can we please have a warrant to search further? And then they'll say yes, and then you go ahead and check the situation. The way the system worked before was constitutional, and it worked. Now we're just, brazenly violating everybody's privacy. We're collecting everybody's information, and then it's clearly being abused, as all these headlines show, which is why Edward Snowden did what he did. And the idea that he's the one that committed a crime, excuse me? It's the government that committed a crime. It's the NSA that committed a crime. Not just a crime, but they're not just acting illegally, they're acting in an unconstitutional way, and of course the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. I mean, even the loose argument that they make to say it's legal, they say, well, look, we're doing it because of Section 215 of the Patriot Act, and they say that gives them the authority to collect all this information. But the fucking author of Section 215 of the Patriot Act, Representative Sensenbrenner, even he says, no, you're perverting and abusing my provision. I know what it's for. I fucking wrote it. You're wrong for interpreting it the way you are. And by the way, there's been multiple federal judges that have come out on the side of Snowden and said, actually, he's right. It's the government breaking the law, not him. He's the very definition of a whistleblower. And then finally, when you hear David Gregory, honestly, one of the worst journalists around right now. He's not even a journalist. I mean, he's such an establishment suck-ass, it's disgusting, He has no idea that his job is to hold the politicians' feet to the fire and get the facts out there, All he does is suck up to the politicians and the establishment on the Republican and the Democratic side. And when he says at the beginning, how does it make you feel, Peter King, when Snowden asserts without evidence that, that his actions haven't damaged the country? Wait. The government is asserting that it did cause damage to the country, and the government didn't present any evidence. So notice what David Gregory did. He flipped it. The burden of proof is always on whoever's making the positive claim. So when the government comes out and they say, we are asserting that because of Edward Snowden's leaks that, it helped terrorists and it really harmed the country. Okay, fair enough. That's your claim. Now you need to present evidence, because until you present evidence, we're not supposed to believe you. That's the way the world works. That's the way that, being a rational, logical person works. You made a claim, so you present the evidence. And they go, we don't have any evidence to show you. Just take our word for it. Like Peter King did there. We have evidence to say that the terrorists are changing how they communicate. Really? Which terrorists? Name who? Tell us how they change their form of communication. Tell us exactly what's going on here. You can't just say something vague and broad and expect us to go, oh, okay, I guess he's right, because that's not evidence. You're not presenting any evidence. So they flip it, and they go, the burden is on Edward Snowden. But wait, Edward Snowden's evidence that he's right and that his leaks didn't harm the country would be, I don't know, the fact that nothing's fucking happened since he leaked the stuff? So he's right, and the burden is on the government, and they haven't met that burden. And then finally, when you hear Peter King say, well, terrorists are changing how they talk. Number one, no, because you haven't presented any evidence, so I think you just made that up. I don't believe you. I don't trust you. You always make shit up. But number two, even if they did change how they communicated, how do you know that that was based on Edward Snowden's leaks? Because I got news for you. Terrorists around the country, whether they're Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, or whoever, they know that the United States is trying to listen into when they're talking to each other. They know that the U.S. intelligence is after them. They are stated enemies to the United States of America. They already know that we're trying to get them, I think the drone strikes were enough of a clue that we're not exactly on their side.